Hey everybody, it's Spear here and welcome back to another Archetype 101. This week we're covering all of the set 10s. We had previously done Shadow Dragons. Today we're doing Mono Red Pilaf. So, I think Bandai's committed to the Pilaf crew always being kind of gimmicky, but honestly this time the archetype's not too bad. I'm not super fond of Pilaf as a character, nor of any of the decks he's ever been a part of, but the ideas behind this deck are kind of cute. So we'll just jump right into it. For those of you who don't know, Pilaf was actually starred in the original Dragon Ball, so he's been there since the beginning. And he wants to Dragon Ball so that he can rule the earth and eventually also get rich. I hate this character. I think he adds very little to the comedy aspect of Dragon Ball, but whatever, he's there. As far as the archetype itself, you're trying to flood your board to then sacrifice a bunch of the Pilaf gang members to then power up not only your Unison cards, but cheat out a boss monster. And I use that very loosely because I don't think it's crazy, but so what we're going to do first is we're going to go over the leader, because the leader kind of shows us how the chain comes together and also kind of what the end game is. So on the front side, he's like insanely basic. When he attacks, draws one card, and when your life is at 4 or less, or you have up to 3 or more battle cards in play, at that point you can switch up 2 energy into active mode and flip him around. So no real utility on his front side, and I think that's what really makes him not as playable, is the fact that leaders need to be able to do more than just draw cards. But nevertheless, when he awakens, on attack, he draws cards again. So activate main once per turn. You get to choose 3 battle cards and return them to owner's drop area. And then you get to choose one of your red Unison cards and it gains triple attack for the turn. So this is the aspect where we're sacking off people to be able to power up our Unison cards. So obviously the deck, if you want this deck to function in any real utility, you're going to need Unison cards, which we'd want to do anyways because Unison cards are going to be such a powerful and impactful part of the game moving forward, but even more so if you're trying to play Pilaf. So then, what's the chain? Well, realistically, the way I think we're meant to do it is you play this 1-drop shoe. And what shoe lets you do is that you get to place in your drop area, and you get to choose 1 Pilaf or Mai from your hand with an energy cost of 2 or less and play it. Pilaf, when you go to play it, you get to go look up for a red shoe and a red Mai that costs 2 from your deck, then shuffle it, play them and shuffle them. For the shoe, you get to look for a Pilaf or a Mai, and then for the Mai, you get to look for a Pilaf or a shoe. So no matter which one you have in hand, you're going to be able to play one and then get the rest. Mind you, this is only when you have 3 or more energy. So the chain is blocked off of being a turn 3 play. And then the benefit of having just right off the bat those 3 on board for free is that you also get to play Mercenary Talon equal to Assassin. Whereas if your leader card's red and you have 3 or more non-token battle cards in play, you get to play him from your hand and he's critical for the turn. So you get an extra 15k crit attack. And that's really what the deck is trying to do. You're essentially swarming the board on turn 3 and then just getting a lot of attacks. You get all these swings, and then with your leader, you get to ship 3 of these cards into the drop to then give your Unison cards triple attack. So then we're getting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attacks all in one turn. So, you know, without a Nimbus or anything, like, this can be really potent. I don't think it's great because it's very interactable. None of them have protection, and none of these cards really do anything if they go to the drop. But it's there to say that there is some basis for this deck actually doing something. You also get this endgame where you have Pilaf Machine, the Master Bot. He's got triple attack and activate main. For 3 red energy, you can send 1 Pilaf, 1 Mai, and 1 shoe card from your drop area to your warp and play this card from your hand. So effectively, your big play, you're getting 7 attacks when you mix in battle cards plus Unison cards, plus you get this triple attack from this card. And then on top of that, when this card's removed from battle area due to an opponent skill or KO'd, you get Pilaf Machine. And what essentially Pilaf is a 20k blocker who also brings something down by 25k when he comes on board. Clearly you're getting a lot of swings in, you know, and 25k beater, 15k beaters, like, it's a lot of attacks really early on. I still think it's cute, but hey, it's something you can do. So that's effectively the chain. You play your shoe. Well, I figure you play your shoe so that for 1, you can effectively get all 3 2-drops to then attack with all of them, bump up your Unison card, get triple attack on that end, and then get a triple attack with this machine. The Unisons that I see yourself really playing with this is Vegeta. First off, because he adds a marker when he attacks. And he gives a card minus 5k. So when you give a triple attack, you're effectively minus 15k'ing either a single target or multiple targets on the board. And then finally, he's got an activate main. Choose one of your red battle cards or leader cards, and it gets 5k power for the turn. And you can attack your opponent's battle cards in active mode for the turn. So obviously, I think that's where it fits in the best. It's very on curve. It's a 2-drop, which means your lines of play are essentially 1 drop. Use a searcher. Start setting up your board. Start finding your pieces. Turn 2, you play your Vegeta, and then turn 3, you go through the entire step of the chain. Play your Shu, play a bunch of your cards, awaken to get the 3rd energy untapped, and then tap that 3 so you can get the triple attacking boss monster. I think that's really where this deck is lining itself up to be. However, of course, you could run this with any Unison. So we have to include the other 2. We have Vegito, Unison of Might. He's got 3 loyalty abilities. Is +1, draw 1 card, then choose up to one of your mono red battle cards with an energy cost of 2 or less in hand and play it. So obviously this means you could start playing your chain pieces just off of this one if you don't have your 1-drop Fu, or effectively for 4 you're getting 4 attackers at least, if you want to see it this way, because if you play your other 2-drop, then all the rest come. -2 until the end of your opponent's next turn. If your opponent would play a battle card using a skill, it's placed in their drop area instead. Very defensive, obviously can let you help you out last another turn. And then finally the -5 ultimate. If your opponent doesn't have any battle cards in play, deal 1 damage to your opponent. Burn, super good. Red's really good at keeping board control, like we've seen some of the Pilaf pieces neg some battle cards. So if you're able to clear off board, you can use his ultimate to burn your opponent as well. And there's Sin Shenron, using a Calamity. Your red cards can attack your opponent's battle cards in active mode. Again, another very red thing to be able to do. +1, choose up to 2 your opponent's battle cards, and they get minus 15k power for the turn. More board control. I think this deck is more of an aggro deck than anything else, but if you feel like you need to slow down the tempo with your opponent, definitely an option. -2, look at your opponent's hand, choose up to 1 battle card with 25k power or less from it, and discard it. So the Broly effect, obviously super powerful. Now we have it on repeatable on a user's body that's harder to clear out. So if you're going for more of a mid-rangey build, definitely an option you can take. Then we have the Facilitators. These are just the cards that make it easier to play the deck, or that really help you find your pieces, or allow you to go into your engine more easily if you initially get interrupted. This field card, if your leader card is a Red Pilaf, and you choose 2 cards from your hand and place them at the bottom of your deck, you get to draw 3 cards. That happens when you play it. So obviously this really cycles your hand, and this is kind of what I was saying, where your turn 1, you're really kind of setting up your plays. So here you're going to be able to set up your deck, you're going to be able to set up your hand. Effectively, probably what you want to go for on turn 1 if you're not using a searcher. Then as an activate main, switch this card in rest mode, and then choose up to 1 of your red battle cards and place it in its owner's drop area. You get to choose 1 of your battle cards and it gets 5k power for the turn. It's not great, but it's extra utility, allows your beaters to go in for more attacks, and obviously if you have the triple attack machine, then that means now it's a 30k. Always a good option to have. Then we have a couple of Bulma cards. There's 1-drop Bulma Out Adventuring. It's a super combo, but it's a super combo that allows you to play a red Earthling card with an energy cost of 1 in your hand, which means that you could play the Shu off of her for free if you really need that energy efficiency. This super combo is weird. It works if in total the life of the game is 8 or less, as opposed to just you being at 4 or less. So that's something to keep in mind. And she has added utility as a 1-drop that if you have her on board, you can choose up to 1 of your red battle cards or unison cards and get 5k for the turn. Again, pumping up those triple attackers if that's the type of situation we're in. And if you're powering up a triple attacker, she's effectively becomes a 15k combo instead of simply being a 10k combo. So that's always a perk on top of that. And 25k if you actually combo with her afterwards. So obviously very powerful there. Something to keep in mind, all the Pilaf gang are Earthlings. I know Pilaf doesn't look like an Earthling, but he's an Earthling, I swear. Then we got the 2-drop Bulma Bunny Girl. This is the SR Bulma of the set. She's a unique blocker. And when one of your red Earthling cards other than a Bulma card is removed from a battle area by an opponent's skill, you may play this card from your hand. If you do, play up to 1 red Earthling only battle card with an energy cost of 4 or less in your drop area. So this is kind of where the recursion comes in. So it's not super in archetype. I'm fairly certain the Bulma cards are meant to work more so with the Earthling archetype that Yamcha kind of fills in. But she fills the gap in that, just about everything in the Pilaf archetype are Earthlings, mono Earthlings as well. So you're never going to really run into that issue, and I think you really should look into including a couple of those to make sure you have that recursion in case your opponent is trying to interact with you. So then we get into the searchers, because obviously we need added consistency, and there's a couple of them. There's the one drop Mai, which when you play her, she gets to look at the top 5. You get to add one Earthling with a cost of 4 or less and add it to your hand. Then there's the Pilaf, which is the same thing, although he also gets the benefit of being able to take a Unison card instead. So obviously you're gonna pump up 4 Pilafs any day before you pump, more Mais, since she's effectively just a downgraded version of Pilaf. But the options are there if you want them. Looking into the defensives, like I said with the Shadow Dragon builds, a lot of it is very monocolor centric, and a lot of it's Unison rewarding type of card advantage. So we have Pilaf Missile. If you have a Unison card in play as a cost, if the card being played has 15k power or less, it's placed in the drop area instead. And then you get to choose up to one of your leader cards, and it gets 5k power for the turn. It's cute. It's not great, but it's alright. The 5k power is like a bean. You can look at this like a bean. So on that end, it's a very defensive, proactive version of bean, which honestly can see play. Of course, like with all of these, there's the permanent that if your energy is mono red, you can activate its counter skill by pitching cards from your hand. Wolfgang Fist, counterattack if your leader card is mono red, choose up to one attacking battle card or leader card ignoring barrier, and it gets minus 15k for the battle. And if you have a red Unison card in play, you can do it for free without paying the cost. Master Roshi, Martial Virtuoso, he's a 1-drop counterattack. If you have a red Unison card in play, your opponent can attack with a battle card with 25k power or more for the turn, and then you play the card. Mind you, because of the way this card is phrased, it never actually negates the first attack. So you are going to have to combo and defend yourself against the first attack. However, it will stop any sequential attacks by cards that are 25k or less, which is very relevant. Doesn't impact leaders or Unison cards, but with the type of swarm board tactics we've seen in the game recently, that's probably still just fine, especially as a budget option to people who are trying to find more ways to try and stall. Obviously it's no topo, but it can serve similar function in that they can attack at all. So this definitely has that kind of secret utility to it. This 2-drop Oolong, the mini face is a blocker. When this card's KO, draw one card, then choose up to one of your red Unison cards and gets 5k power for the turn. It's okay, it's like a bean for your Unison cards. In that front, I decided to make sure that we expose A8 here because obviously the deck is Unison centric. We want to make sure we have ways to actually protect most likely Vegeta. So this is kind of one of those ways to do it. And it shows that Bandai is willing to give more defensive options to Unison cards, which I think is partially insane. I think they already have so much going for them on a defensive front, but regardless, good card to have, good card to keep in mind. I don't think it sees a ton of play, but it is an Earthling. It can be cheated out. And finally, we have Yamcha, Merciless Barrage. So naturally, this is part of the SR series where if you play the counterplay, then you can't play another one for the turn. And this one says, choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards. They get minus 15k power for the turn and then play this card. Because of the way this card's templated, you can only hit cards that are already on board. The card that's coming in won't be impacted. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to include this in the deck. Finally, we have promos, or promo. There's only one really. I don't think he's insane, but because you can cheat him out, he has some utility and some of the deck cares about when cards leave the battle area. I decided to include him. So Pilaf, Innovative Emperor. When this card is placed in a drop area from a battle area by his skill, choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards and they get minus 10k power for the turn. So obviously there's some board clearing. It's a defensive option. With the way you play this, you might be able to like sneak in a minus 10k to 2 of your opponent's cards. It's not a great card, but I've seen some decks include it, and it is part of the archetype. So I decided to let this in. Unlike the Shadow Dragon video where I forgot some of the promos, my bad. The archetype is still missing, by the way. There's still some cards missing in there, but the archetype is a bit fuller than I was expecting, than I initially thought. With that said though, that's pretty much it. There's no real dedicated secret rare for the deck. So there's no like real Pilaf one. Like you could include the Great Ape one, but like it's not really part of the archetype. You include it if you feel you need to. Or there's the black one, the SS4 Gogeta, but again, I don't really feel like you could, but it's not archetype specific. So I'll include those in decks that I feel really kind of rely on that strategy. But for now, that's really the Archetype 101 for Mono Red Pilaf. It's a swarm deck. You're going to be able to get on average about 7 attacks on turn 3 if uninterrupted by things like Topo or Nimbus. So obviously a lot of burst potential there. However, I think it's very vulnerable. So keep that in mind if you decide to pick up the deck. If I got anything wrong, or you have any recommendations on how I would even begin to building this deck, let me know in the comments down below. If you like the videos, give it a like. If you dislike it, the other button works too. And if you want to see more Archetype 101s, then click that subscribe button. We're doing this all week, people. Anyways, see you guys in the next one. Ciao.